Hi, I'm Matt from the HMO platform. We help landlords across the UK to get on course towards profitability, wealth and success in an ethical way using our next level HMO and co-living strategies. In this video, we're going to cover how planning permission and HMOs work. So what do we need to be aware of when dealing with HMOs and planning? Now the first thing that we need to know is how buildings are categorised in the UK. Now this is done by giving each property a name in a different planning use class. This determines how that property is allowed to be used. Now the government have restricted the change of use from one use to another, but some uses are allowed to happen automatically under something called permitted development. So that's quite key to understand. And it's especially true when it comes to HMOs. Let's begin by looking at the use classes of residential property. We first of all take our residential dwelling house or your own home occupied by a family. This is a C3 property. The property will be C3 when we put a couple of tenants in, but when we put in our third tenant, we've then created an HMO. If you look back at our definition of what an HMO is, it's three unconnected people. So what we've done is change the use from a C3 dwelling house to what is called a C4 small HMO. The C4 use class allows for between 3 and 6 unconnected people, so you can move between 3, 4, 5, 6 people as much as you like. But as soon as you drop back to 2, the use automatically jumps back to being a C3 house. Now for most of the country, we can do that change of use from C3 to C4 without any questions because it's permitted development, it just happens automatically. But if a council brings in something called an Article 4 direction, it then prohibits the change of use from C3 to C4 without full planning permission. Doesn't mean it won't be granted, but it does mean it's harder to get. And I'm definitely going to talk about Article 4 directions in another video, but for now just be aware that you can't automatically do it, so go and check with your local council whether they have an Article 4 direction related to that change of use from C3 to C4 for HMOs. Now once the government had divided up the majority of the types of properties in the UK, there are some types of properties that were left over, which didn't really fit into any of the other use classes. For example, casinos, laundrettes, and large HMOs of 7 or more unconnected people would fall into this category of sui generis. I call it the dustbin of planning classes because it's where everything else has ended up. It means in a class of its own. So when we apply for planning permission for 7 or 8 or 9 people, we apply for sui generis planning, and that is a full planning application every single time. And in order to get this approved, it's key to understand the planning policies in the area that you're applying for, because that will dictate whether you will or won't get your planning permission through. Again, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. In fact, in some areas, it's quite easy to get planning for sui generis HMOs because they don't even have a policy. So it's hard for them to find reasons for refusal. So when it comes to HMO planning, we just need to be aware how many people are intended to live in the property. And this is that key thing. You can have an 8-bedroom property that only has 6 people living in it, and you haven't broken planning rules. You can create the space and do the works without the full planning because it's all about the occupancy and who is living in the property. So you can have 6 people without any issues living in that property, but as soon as you put the 7th person in or the 8th person in, then you start to breach those planning rules. So that's a bit about a summary on the basics of HMO planning. If you want to know a little bit more about that, then ask questions and I'll answer them below. Or actually, if you want to see everything in one place, you can come and see us in Brighton on one of our upcoming next level HMO workshops. But for now, thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe, and see you in the next video.